and a very good morning to you. If you've just joined for the first time, my name is David Batsoffen, and I host a travel blog called Travel and Things, he says, holding up the merchandise. My guest today is all the way from the Midlands of KwaZulu-Natal. He is Raymond Heron, and he's from Spionkop Lodge. Raymond, good morning. Welcome to you.
Morning, David. Good to hear your voice again.
It's good to see you. It has been a while. I'd hoped that I was going to time a visit to your lodge, that I got into lockdown and wasn't able to leave your property for like a year.
You know, you were due to come down and see us, and then bang, somebody shut the door. That was it.
Literally and figuratively. So what happens to Raymond Heron now that he's got nobody to chat to? Because I mean, you're up and down Spionkop twice a day sometimes, and now you've got nobody to interact with. So have you been sort of wandering around and chatting to the cows and explaining to them what happened at Spionkop and down at the river?
Let me put it this way: I've got to know my wife a hell of a lot better than I did. So we know one another a lot better than we're too busy running around the business to look after one another. So there's a bit of that going on, and it's rather pleasant. But it's awkward when you're not talking to people on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I've managed to keep my mind pretty active in that we've decided to build but one of the big rooms in the main house, we're converted into a museum.
Oh, nice.
I've got a museum which I think will be well worth a visit one day.
Mm.
And our library, as you know, I've got a huge collection of books on the South African War, both the First and Second World Wars. I've got just about every book that was ever written by or about Winston Churchill, all in that library. And so I've built the museum next to the library, and it's got the potential to be a very nice museum and well worth a visit.
I'm just trying to think whereabout you've placed this museum, Raymond.
You know the main house. You know, I don't know if you've ever stayed in room number 5. 5
Yeah.
sort of faces Spionkop, and there's a passageway that leads into what was the main lounge of the house.
Right.
And I've used that room. It's that room that I've put together.
So have you already have artifacts to put in there, or are you busy working on those currently?
Well, it's interesting that a couple of things have happened. You know, I've had it in mind for a while. I've collected things over the years. You know that in reception, as you go in, there's that one cabinet full of memorabilia. Now that obviously up in the museum, but I've had a collection which was too big to have displayed in the reception area.
Ah, okay.
So I've got a lot of stuff that was sort of sitting in boxes, which I'm now able to get out of the museum. Then Ladysmith, the old toll house in Ladysmith, the Ladysmith Historical Society turned that into a museum. And it was the Toll House Museum.
Right.
Now, the Ladysmith Society is good as disbanded, unfortunately. It doesn't seem to have enough members. And the church, who owns the building, wanted the building back for some purpose. I don't know what the purpose is. So they actually contacted me and asked if I would be interested in the collection. And I don't want to own the collection. I'm quite happy to be a custodian. So but all the Toll House Museum artifacts across at the lodge at the moment.
Oh, wonderful.
And we're just waiting to have a look at play cabinets and what's going to go in and what's not going to go in. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
So keeping yourself out of mischief. You know, there is an upside to this lockdown. I know that I've been putting off cleaning out my photographic studio for about a year. You know, and stuff piles up. And then when the lockdown happened, and I thought it was only going to be 3 weeks, I got stuck into the studio on day 1 of the lockdown, and I tidied up like a whirling dervish. So I did that I did the whole studio in one day, and then realized, no, hang on a second, this is going to go on for much longer. hence the reason for in conversation with to keep me occupied. Now, I also noticed from pictures that you guys have been, I noticed from pictures that you guys have been posting, your cattle seem to be wandering through the property now, rather than or between the reception area and the main accommodation building.
Yeah, what about that?
Now, I said I see cattle wandering, pictures of cattle on the lawn there that I've never experienced before when I've stayed with you guys.
Can you see the cattle now?
No. But it was on Facebook. There was a picture that somebody posted. All I can see now is you and the shelf behind you. I mean, if there was a cow behind you, Raymond, I should imagine you'd know about it.
we try quite hard to keep the cattle out of the lodge area, out of the lodge grounds. But every now and again they sneak in. And there's one bull in particular who's been driving me nuts because I can't find out how he's getting in. But we'll sort him out in time.
You figure it out. Right now,
I'm at my
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm looking out over a pasture now where there are many cattle, sort of dairy cattle, grazing. And the reason I brought it up is because in amongst the cattle is a bald ibis.
Oh, pretending to be a cattle egret, no doubt.
The other thing I think you might just be a little bit interested in, I don't know if you will be, but I've been talking about a book for some time, and this is giving me a chance to get into the book.
Oh, great stuff.
So that's also, a positive, because I just had time to get into it. Yeah.
Look, there are positives, not many of them, but there are positives nevertheless. But now, what is happening at the top of Spionkop at the moment? Are there no visitors allowed at all? Are you not allowed to go and check that people aren't, stealing the crosses or taking stones or stuff like that?
Yeah, no. Look, everything's shut down. As you know, I can go anytime I like. I mean, there's nothing stopping me from going there, but I certainly wouldn't go up there with guests, because I just think that would be the wrong thing to do.
Right.
So it's the way it was.
Okay.
Spionkop is particularly lucky in that, I believe it's lucky, in that it's remote. It's out of the way, not easy to get to. We've never had a problem with vandalism. We've never had a problem with theft. And I doubt that we will ever have that sort of a problem. So, from that point of view, it's fine. But the game reserve, it's also locked down. You can't go into the game reserve. We, of course, as sort of custodians, we can get in and have a drive around and see that all the animals are all being looked after properly. But not that it's our job to make sure they're looked after properly.
Yeah. Is there water?
You've got to look out for poaching and that.
Yeah. Is there water in the dam, Raymond?
100% full. You can't believe it.
Really?
You cannot believe it. It is 100% full, and it looks spectacular.
Because I've been there where it's been less than 50% full, and that's a scare. That is really strange looking when you sort of got boats in the middle of what looks like an open field, and it's actually halfway in where the dam would have been.
Yeah.
Raymond,
all of that, right.
For people who don't know the history of Spionkop, and I've always said, and I mean, I've been up Spionkop several times with you, it is one of the battle sites that is the most emotional for me. And I think it's because it was such a ridiculous battle. No ground, as you explained to me so nicely on more than one occasion, no ground was won or lost, yet hundreds of lives were lost in that futile attempt to gain nothing. I mean, it's an exercise in stupidity, to say that stupidity and miscommunication, to say the least.
Yeah, you know, I often look at it and I just wonder about it. And I've found on a number of occasions when I've been driving off Spionkop with my guests, and we've had a look at the number of people who died for no particular reason, or ought not to have died there.
Yeah.
We all know why the reason. We all know why there was a war. But for anyone in his right mind to think that he could take Spionkop away from the Boers, I mean, you've got to be really, there's got to be something going wrong with you. And I do think that the decision to take Spionkop was a bad one. And I'm reminded on the way down of that child's poem, The Grand Old Duke of York,
Yes.
who had 10,000 men and
Yeah.
marched them up to the top of the hill. He marched them down again, you know.
Yeah.
It's that kind of ridiculous a moment. But,
Yeah, but if you continue with that
just,
poem, if you continue with that poem, Raymond, if I remember correctly, it goes, he marched them up to the top of the hill and he marched them down again. When they were up, and when they were down, they were down. And when they were only halfway up, they were neither up nor down. I mean, that's exactly it.
I sort of think of it along the lines, and I realize that it's a very serious moment in the history of the war, and one tries not to make light of it.
No, I realize we're not being disrespectful to the people who died on that hill in any manner. And while
that's right, I do. You've got to bring a bit of lightness into it, because you go nuts if you keep going. You know, the numbers of people who've died and for no real good cause.
Yeah. How many people?
You know, it's a tragical thing.
But now there is a tie into, is it Liverpool FC with the
to do what?
There's a tie-in with a British football club. Oh,
you mean the link with Anfield?
Yeah.
Liverpool football.
Liverpool, club.
Yeah. The one end of the Anfield football ground is known as the Spionkop end. It's been abbreviated to Kop end.
Right.
But if you go to the ground, you actually find that you're directed to the Spionkop end of the ground.
Okay.
And when you buy your ticket says Spionkop end.
Oh, nice.
So the abbreviation to Kop is one thing.
Yeah.
But that is to be set up in memory of the men who lost their lives in the battle. What happened was that during the war, there was a correspondent, a British correspondent, who came out to report. And when he got back to the United Kingdom, they were building new football stadiums.
Okay.
And what they did in those days was, on the one end of the ground you had a cinder mound, and on the other end you had a grandstand. And the visiting supporters would sit on the grandstand.
Right.
And the home supporters would stand on the mound. And there'd been a game of football between Liverpool and Arsenal. And the next morning in the newspaper, the fellow wrote that the Spionkop supporters were standing on the Spionkop end of their ground in the face of the enemy, because the shape of the mound resembled the shape of Spionkop.
Okay. But the other interesting thing, for me anyway, about that battle is there were 3 people involved in that battle that, had any of them died on that particular day, the world as we know it today would have been radically different from a political perspective.
I believe that. You know, the men you're referring to are, first of all, Winston Churchill.
Right.
And then Louis Botha, who went on to become the first Prime Minister of the Union of South Africa in 1910, and Gandhi. And Mahatma Gandhi was there as a stretcher bearer. And it's actually on that mountain on that day that he's reputed to have got his first feelings for passive resistance.
Right.
Because he heard to say that he could see what the human race was capable of doing to one another, but he needed to know in the name of what.
But Raymond, what made Winston Churchill not only come back, because he was captured, he was sent back to England, because he was a reporter originally for the war. Then he comes back as a foot soldier. I would have thought if I'd been given the reprieve of escaping and getting back to England, I wouldn't have wanted to come back, and certainly not to bear arms.
You know, Churchill.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, he came out as a journalist initially.
Yeah.
And he got into the Colenso area, and he got onto a reconnaissance train that would go up to the front. So he was on the train that was going to Ladysmith to get as close as they could. They did the reconnaissance, and on the way back, the Boers derailed the train. And Churchill ought to have lost his life in that derailment, because we know that the Boers fired shells at the engine, and that he was on the footplate of the engine, because it says so in his book. But 4 years after the Colenso incident, they found 2 shells on a farm that hadn't detonated. And those 2 shells had been fired out of a Boer gun and had gone through the boiler of the engine. Now, had either of those detonated, that would have been the end of Winston Churchill there and then. But anyway, he got arrested at that. He was taken to Pretoria, locked up in the Model State School, masterminded an escape plan, managed to get out of the school after dark one night, and was making his way to Delagoa Bay. But realizing that he'd be detected on the train, he decided to bail off. And he spent 3 days in the open veldt. No food, no water, absolutely parched. Third night, he sees lights in the distance. Says, well, I just got to go there. It doesn't matter who it is. And when he gets there, it's a colliery. And he knocked on the mine captain's front door. And the mine captain was friendly to the British cause, which is very unusual in that part of South Africa. Hid him down a mine shaft for 2 days, fed him up, got him down to Delagoa Bay. When he got to Delagoa Bay, it was teeming with Boers. They had posted a poster, wanted, dead or alive, £25. Now, in those days, that was quite a lot of money. So he decided to gap it from there, and he sailed from Delagoa Bay to Durban. Disembarked in Durban, made a famous speech on the town hall steps in Durban, in which he said to the people gathered, if they're going to arrest me as a journalist, I might as well enlist. So he then joined the South African, and he became Lieutenant Winston Churchill. He was captured on the 15th of November, 1899. He was back on Mount Alice, where you've been before, on the 14th of January, 1900. So 2 months later, he was back on the front. That's how I come to be Battle of Spionkop.
Now, you alluded to the fact that Mahatma Gandhi was there as a stretcher bearer. And I know that on my last visit to you guys and to Spionkop, you were about to unveil a memorial to the men of color and the people who weren't recognized originally. Has that officially been unveiled now? Has all the political wrangling stopped? And they've, has everybody sort of said, all right, let's do this and let's make it official?
David, thanks for that question. Yeah, it has now officially been unveiled.
Good.
And what happened was on the 24th of January this year, the battle turned 120 years old.
Right.
So it's 100 years since the battle. And we had an amazing turnout of people who came to lay wreaths, and the Boers to do theirs, and the Brits to do theirs, and the Indian stretcher bearers to whom Gandhi was a part of, and the Black Scouts. And really, in what was rather an emotional ceremony, the new rector of the Anglican Church in Ladysmith in the area, he unveiled that memorial and dedicated it. Really, very good. So yeah, that's been done.
No, I'm really glad,
It's the
because
only
I think
memorial.
they were an important part of that battle.
Absolutely. It's the only memorial in the entire country that recognizes the contribution of the Black Scouts and the Indian stretcher bearers.
But also, Raymond, again, if memory serves me, that was sort of the last of the gentleman battles, where they stopped and then helped each other's casualties, stopped shooting at each other, and then when, I don't know, blew a whistle or something and went, all right, let's start killing each other again. It's so weird.
It was crazy because they called a truce at Spionkop morning after the battle. The Boers thought that the British were still up there because they could hear them talking. But the only fellas they could hear talking were the ones who were too wounded to be taken off the battleground.
Right.
But the Boers their positions and were ready to start the fight again. And Winston Churchill and Dr. Knox were on the top of Spionkop, sort of certifying the dead and seeing to the wounded, when the Boers opened fire on them. And it took them all their time to convince the Boers that the truce had been called. And only when they got onto the summit of Spionkop and could see down across the Chigella River, where they saw the entire British retreat, did the Boers then call it a victory for themselves. But that's when they did the burials.
Oh, okay. Because
and all the trenches on Spionkop today act as mass graves to the British soldiers who lost their lives on at that battle, including the Boer trench that had been dug as a defensive trench for themselves.
Right.
So 58 Boers lost their lives in the battle, and nobody's really been able to get a handle on the British, but about 700 is a figure that would be pretty close to being right.
I mean, the numbers are staggering, and as we said when we were chatting at the beginning of this conversation, to die for nothing, because not 1 centimeter was gained or lost. But you talk about the truce. It reminds me of World War I, where again, sort of tea time, they would stop. The Germans and the British, I know that over Christmas and New Year used to play soccer games together. And then when Christmas was over and they'd exchange pleasantries, they'd go back to their respective trenches and start hurling bullets at each other. It's weird how those wars were fought, you know.
I don't know if I've ever told you, but on that subject, it's quite interesting to note that during the Boer War and the siege of Ladysmith was under siege during the Christmas of 1899.
Right.
And so on Christmas Day, and there was no fighting. The gentleman's rules: you don't fight on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
You do not fight after dark. Every day after a battle, Tuesday you see wounded and you bury your dead.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to fight on the holiest day of all, I mean, on a Sunday, then you're not going to fight on the holiest day of all.
Right.
And on Christmas Day, the townsfolk were out on the village green in Ladysmith. Soldiers were cricket and football on the village green. It was a very festive occasion when a shot was fired, and the fellow whose job it was to keep an eye on the high ground for puffs of smoke, knowing that shells were coming in, started to wave his flag, and everybody was taking shelter in the dugouts. And the first shell arrived in the town, and it didn't detonate. Then another one arrived, and it didn't detonate. They must have sent some stop out to go and find out what was going on. And when he got there, he found that the Boers had inscribed on the sides of the shells compliments of the season. And where you would expect to find detonators, they removed the detonators and stuffed them with Christmas pudding.
That wouldn't happen today at all. What is the lodge, the Spionkop Lodge, which you and your wife, Lynette, and your family run? What is that doing in order to be ready for whenever it is that we open up to whatever normal will be after this pandemic dissipates?
You know, we always try to run a lodge at a fairly high level. We try to make sure that it's well looked after, and we have continued that.
Right.
I have been the groundsman. Lawns are beautifully groomed. Any work that we thought we needed to do to the bedrooms, we've done that sort of work as well.
Right.
And it's looking good. It just needs a guest.
I think that's what Tourism South Africa are saying in general. You know, it just needs a guest, or we just need guests. But no doubt, if people want to find out more about Spionkop, about your excursions to the top of the mountain, and also about the lodge, where can they find out? Because I'm sure that, you know, people are starting to make plans, even if it's only for 2021. They're starting to make plans already, so they've got something to look forward to. And I think a trip down to your part of the world would be absolutely ideal. And in January, that area is magnificent.
You know, well, first of all, to answer your question, www.spionkop.co.za will get you into our, and you'll be able to pick up anything you need in that on that web address.
Okay.
But this autumn that we're in at the moment, man, it's been absolutely spectacular. God, it's been the most beautiful blooming autumn. I can't tell you how beautiful it is. Anyway,
you should start
so
posting photographs daily or something, Raymond, of specifically the view out over the mountains from the deck outside the dining room, because the sunsets in that area are spectacular.
Yeah, well, I should actually send you a couple of shots that I've taken, sunset shots.
That would be nice.
Really well. Really well. I'll get a couple of you.
Great stuff. Raymond, thank you Thank you so much for chatting to me. I know this was at very short notice, and thanks to your daughter for taking care of the technical aspect. And once you're back up and running, we will do this again, but hopefully we can do it from the top of Spionkop, because I think that would be really cool with that as the background. So regards, yeah.
Look, that's brilliant. I never thought of that, but we could do it. I could go to the top of Spionkop anytime you wanted to chat to me, and I'd chat to you from the top of Spionkop. That's brilliant. Good idea.
That's something to look forward to. Please send my very best regards to everybody down there. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And once again, Raymond Heron from Spionkop Lodge, thank you very much for joining me on In Conversation With.
Thanks, David.